Today, let us examine the words of God under the title, What is the meaning of the Passover? There can be many reasons for Jesus coming to the earth, but he strongly emphasized and said, I have come to give the Passover to mankind. This is the will of the Father who is in heaven. Even though Christ said it in such a way, today, there is not a single church that keeps the Passover in the whole world. We must be able to distinguish if they are living their life of faith correctly, following Jesus. Let's turn to John chapter 6. Chapter 6, verse 38 says, For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of Him who sent me. To do whose will? He said, I have come to do the will of God, the Father. And this is the will of Him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that He has given me. But what will He do? Raise them up at the last day. He said, to raise them up at the last day is the will of God who sent me. The answer to this can be found in the same chapter 6, verse 54, which you know well. The Passover is the truth that will lose none, but raise them up at the last day. Let's confirm it is through the Passover in verse 54. Chapter 6, verse 54. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will, what will he do? Raise him up at the last day. It says, this is the will of the Father who sent me. Then, according to Matthew chapter 26, verses 17 through 26, and Luke chapter 22, verses 7 through 20, can't we easily understand what is the truth that allows us to eat His flesh and drink His blood? Christ said, For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of Him who sent me. And this is the will of Him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that He has given me, but raise them up at the last day. But in verse 54 it says, whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood, and what will he do on the last day? It says, he will raise them up. In conclusion, whose will is the Passover, through which we can eat Christ's flesh and drink His blood? This is the will of the Father who sent me. Everyone, the Passover is the will of God. Keeping the Passover is the will of God. Through the Passover, we will be raised up in the last days and given eternal life. The Passover is a holy grace bestowed upon us by our God as the absolute seal that will protect us from the 7 disasters, as God tells us, you are mine. Hoping that you received much grace through these words, let me conclude the sermon today. Thank you very much.